Welcome to Equal Footing, a podcast from Usawa Collective where we dive headfirst into the world of gender equality.
We're your hosts,
Madhuri
and Karen, friends and total gender nerds on a mission to uncover the amazing things happening in the space of gender equality around us. We'll be uncovering the challenges, why they exist, but more importantly, we'll be shining a spotlight on the innovators, the change makers, and the game changers who are creating, implementing, and championing solutions.
Think of it as a weekly dose of hope and inspiration, with a side of insightful conversations and maybe even a few laughs along the way. Welcome to Equal Footing, the podcast where we delve into pressing gender equality issues and spotlight initiatives from the Global South. I'm your co-host, Madhuri.
And I'm your co-host, Karen Manzia. On today's episode, we're joined by a guest who's journeyed from rugby pitches all the way to boardrooms, and she's broken barriers when it comes to leadership, especially in the sports industry. She's a co-founder of Twende Sports, an organization that has transformed the Kenyan basketball scene and has had the City Thunders to a historic win or milestone. It's been it led Kenya's first ever win in the Basketball Africa League. And so we are pleased to be spending time with her today to get to know her journey as well as for others to learn from it. Welcome to the show, Sandra.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome.
So, Sandra, we know you personally, but, your journey has been remarkable, right? Like you started as an athlete and now you're the co-founder of a sports company. I read that when you first started playing rugby, you were earning like $100 a month, which sounds not enough for a national level player. Yeah. Maybe walk us through like how your journey started, right? What was it like representing your country in those times, in those conditions, and sort of like what led you from then to transition from an athlete to now on the management side of sports?
Yeah, so when I started playing rugby for Kenya, this was 2014, and it was just after my third year of uni. At the time, it was actually less than $100 because it was 6,000 shillings a month. Wow. And the way it worked was basically you train 3 times a week, so you get 500 shillings for each training session. And then if you make the team to go for like an international tour, then you get like a $100 bonus for the tour. So yeah, that was like third year of university. I had to go back to school in the US. So then I went back, came back after graduation, rejoined the team, found that there was a pay bump this time. So then they were being paid 12,000. So that was a new, double salary, but it was, tough to manage that. I think for me, I was in a good place because it was my first year working in management consulting. So I had another full-time job and rugby was like my part-time thing, right? And so I technically didn't really need the rugby money to survive. But I had teammates for whom that was like the only money they had, right? And it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, I didn't understand why the federation couldn't afford to pay us like a living wage. And I had teammates who like were struggling with rent, struggling with basic bills. So it just seemed unreasonable that you can be wearing the national jersey and out there representing the country and, your house is locked because you can't pay rent. So it made me ask some questions about like, what is the back end of sports, the business side of sports supposed to look like? So 2016, December, I made the decision to step away from rugby because, one, the pay was just not compelling. But number 2, I was also just exhausted. I was trying to balance 2 very challenging careers, like each on its own is quite hard. And so then trying to work in management consulting and be a professional athlete at the same time was quite difficult. And I felt like I didn't have time. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I didn't have time to just live. And it felt like a choice between doing one thing well and doing 2 things, or doing 2 things in a mediocre way. Yeah. And so, I picked the thing that pays the bills, 12,000 shillings isn't very much in Nairobi. So I picked the thing that pays the bills. So this was like December 2026. Made the decision to step away. But also, honestly, there was a lot of like emotional turmoil. And so when I moved back home in December 2015 and then came back into the rugby space in Kenya 2016, the first club I joined for, I think we had a women's team, yes, but then I had a sexual harassment problem as well. And so I left the entire women's team walked out of that club. And yeah, I mean, later on, after processing, I wrote an article about it. The article got published on like an online rugby magazine, and it stirred a lot of, pots. And people were like, media were like reaching out, like, can you tell this story? The union is like, no, we're going to investigate. This is serious allegations. And so there was a lot of talk, but I didn't feel like there was any true impetus behind it. And I knew that like my story wasn't the only story, because before publishing the article, I had actually talked to a lot of women that play rugby in Kenya, and they had shared some of the experiences with me. So it just felt, it felt like, you're not getting paid. It's a toxic space, at least for me at the time. And then also, I think what was so disheartening was there were some female rugby players who I had found in the system. So when the article came out, they were like, oh, unatuharibia jina. It's like, you're spoiling our name. Like, why are you saying these things are happening? Like, just be quiet and move on with life. And so for me, I was like, okay, this is happening to girls younger than you, and you guys have been here for a long time, and there's really no interest in protecting like younger female players who are coming through the system. Yeah, so I think I just got jaded, and I was like, I'm not making money. It's not emotionally fulfilling. Like, what am I doing? If it can't even make me happy, what am I doing? So I left. But then I'll call it a year down the line, so end of 2017, I knew that I wanted to get back into the sports space, but this time on the business side of things. So like, as I said, like answer the question, like what does it look like on the business side of sports when things are working well?
Yeah.
And I knew that this is the path I wanted to take, but I still also felt like I had some more growing up to do professionally. So ended up staying in that consulting career for another 3.5 years. And then finally made the jump into the sports industry full-time 2021, August, via way of a master's program. So I did a master's program in New York for a year and a half. Spent some time working for an agency on that side, spent some time working for a startup league on that side. And while I was in grad school doing the master's, is when I got connected to my co-founders at Twende Sports, and we were like, let's do this thing. So Twende Sports was born January 2023, which is a month after I had finished my master's. Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple of threads I want to pick up on here, but first let's finish your journey. There's a couple of things you've talked about, from, quitting, going to a job that allows you to pay the bills, at the same time feeling frustrated that people, like, to the example of sexual harassment, other people are just like, no, just keep quiet. So almost feeling like you also can't do much at the same time if everyone around you is not seeing a problem. But I want to understand the right aha moment where you felt like, okay, I think it's the right time for me to go back into this. There's the master's etc. But what was that, and what do you think makes you now ready to pursue this different side of leadership? Do you think some of those things have changed, like people feeling ready to have more women in sports etc.? But basically, what was that aha moment that allowed you to fully shift back into sports?
I don't think I had one aha moment. I think it was just like this continuous tagging feeling inside of like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So there wasn't like one defining moment where I was like, now I know for sure I must go into the sports space. It was just more like, even in my day job where you're like, okay, this is kind of interesting, sometimes not so interesting, and I wish I could be doing this thing, right? And so I had multiple of those moments. And then at some point, I think it was 2018, was it 2018? I actually took 2 months off, like a sort of like a sabbatical, to just like think things through, think about how do I make this transition. Ended up deciding it wasn't the right time to make the transition, so went back to my consulting job. So it was more like a series of moments of like, I know this is the path I want to take, but it took me a while to figure out this is where I want to go.
Yeah.
And there was also like a financial component to it.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people who just like quit cold turkey and be like, we'll figure it out. No, I'm not like that. And so there's a part of it that was also about like building a financial buffer so that when I do make the move, even to do the master's, like I have enough to pay for it. I have enough to feed myself when I'm doing the program and give myself enough time to get a job. So it was actually a very calculated play of like, let me take a step here, let me see what happens. And even before the master's, I thought that I might just transition like from one job, like from the management consulting job to like a job, like with a federation or a team. And so as I was having conversations with people, kind of realized in Kenya at the time, I didn't really see myself immediately like working with a team or a federation at that time. And so I was like, okay, I think I want to take this school route. And also just meet and be in a space where sports is truly professional and be able to learn from that ecosystem as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe then picking on that last point, Sandra. So you've been an athlete, you then had experience in the United States, you came back, you started your own company. The couple of things that you spoke about which stand out as challenges, right? Which some of them are categorically for women, some of them broadly for, like sports persons, right? Like institutional backing, which is not there. Obviously fair pay, sexual harassment. Do you see that to be common, or has that just persisted across like now the two continents that you have experienced over the last 10 years? Have things changed? How are you seeing sort of some of those challenges evolve, right? Or is it different when you were in say, more professional setting when you were in the US?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the US is, if you look at the leagues there are certain leagues that have been existing for like 100 years, right? You look at the NBA, the NFL. The women's leagues are younger, but still miles ahead in terms of where we are as a Kenyan sports ecosystem. So I think the biggest difference is, I mean, there when I say it's professional, like it's truly professional, right? So players are on professional contracts. They have solid infrastructure for their games. The business side of things is built in a certain way where like the teams are actually making money. Not all of them might be immediately profitable, but they're generating significant revenue from whether it's sponsorship, media rights, ticketing, merchandise, things like that. So I think those are the biggest differences. When I look at, is it different now from when I used to play? I feel like it's the kind of thing where you take like one step forward, two steps back, sometimes two steps forward, one step back. So one of the things that I heard change after I left the team is that the players were actually given contracts. So not okay. We still did. We had contracts back then. I think no, we didn't actually. When I was there, we didn't have contract, but I had that they have contracts now. And there's a fixed amount of money that was supposed to be paid. But for example, last year I think the women's team had I think there's a time they went, the women's rugby team in Kenya, the national team, had a period of about 8 months or so where they hadn't been paid, right? And so then it's like, theoretically, it's a good, there's been a change because now you're on a contract, you're on it was a significantly higher compensation than when I was playing, but you're not receiving your salary. There's the Kenyan sports ecosystem also has a lot of challenges in terms of impropriety and misuse of funds and, players not getting compensated well, and allegations of federations, directors are embezzling money and those kinds of things, not reinvesting in the sport. And so I see things like that you continue to hear about them, and you're just like, oh, it sounds very familiar. So I think it's also sports specific. Different sports have different dynamics, but if you pick any sport right now in Kenya, you'll mostly hear the same things. If you look at football, if you look at rugby, if you look at basketball, hockey, cricket, like it's the same story. Yeah.
So the story, maybe just on that, like, so the story in the ecosystem might be, you say that, there's still things that feel like they haven't changed. But do you think things have changed for women? Like if Sandra joined as an athlete now, do you think it would be a different experience versus, when you joined like 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think broadly things have changed for women. I also don't like using myself as an example because these things are I come from a very particular, like I was socialized a certain way, right? I grew up playing sports. My family is a very athletic family. Like sports was just something you did if you grew up in my family. So even mentally going into, because in primary school, high school, I played basketball, I ran track. So for me, playing rugby wasn't like, oh, this life-changing thing. A girl somewhere else will have a different experience because maybe for her, this hasn't been a thing when she was growing up. I do, and I will give, for example, the rugby union here credit because I think there's been a lot of growth in young women playing rugby in the country. It's become a lot more mainstreamed in the school system. So like when I was in high school, I think my school, they tried to start a women's rugby team and the principal shut it down. She said it's unsafe.
Oh.
And so for me, I remember thinking, because I was in a school that touted itself for being like, oh, one of the premier like public girls boarding schools in the country. And I was thinking, if you can't allow a rugby team to be established here, like where's it going to happen? But I think that the rugby union has done a good job of like trying to grow age grade rugby. So both boys and girls. And I've seen the growth in the number of kids and girls playing rugby across the country. And so I think with rugby specifically, I think it's grown. Football, I'd say as well. There's been a lot more growth in women's football. So that's really exciting to see, because I think there's a lot more. It's a lot easier for girls now to see other women playing sports. I think there's also a lot more women off the field now. So as coaches, as referees, running sports marketing firms, etc. Definitely a lot more than 9 or so years ago when I was playing. And so that's been a good trend to see, just the increase in women who are active in the sports space.
Yeah. I had a question that I wanted to ask about the ecosystem challenges. Why do you think that's the case for specifically sports, where you're finding either the underfunding, misappropriation? And the reason I ask this is, for all of us maybe who grew up in Kenya, and I don't know what your case is Madhuri, but when you're in school, of course, when you become number one, it's very important, right? And then you do either the drama or the sports, and maybe it was always an other, as opposed to your parents will likely reward you very much for most of the families if you're number one in class for academics. Not necessarily because sports was seen, or creative fields is something that you can make a good career in, and it's created as something that should be that. I know maybe CBC is different right now with the different tracks, but I wonder if that also fuels some of those systemic challenges we find later. So I would love to hear your thoughts on why you think the sports industry has looked like
if
that.
you look at the sort of the attitude we have as a country around sports, I mean, one, we celebrate when our athletes are winning gold medals, at the Olympics or at these races. But when you come to the school system, for many people, when they were going to school, especially if they were in public schools, sports was like something for the dandas. Like for the kids who are like are not very academically gifted, they're like, you can join the football team, you can join the basketball team. For me in high school, it was like if you didn't make certain grades, you couldn't be on the basketball team. But that was not the case in most schools in Kenya. In most schools, it's like, fine, if you are not really academically gifted and you are good at sports, they just let you do that, right? There were even schools in Kenya where you could finish high school and come back and do Form 4 so that you can remain on the rugby team or the basketball team or the football team and compete for the school the next year again, right? And so I think there's a certain unseriousness that we treat sports with right from the school level that cascades into sports beyond school. If you look at government, right? Look at the kind of people that are assigned to the Ministry of Sports. It's when there's a cabinet reshuffle, typically the people that they have wronged the president, the miscreants end up being thrown to the sports sector, right? Like a punishment. You are not going to be given health or education, or
there's no budget.
You're not going to be given the interior ministry. You're going to be taken to sports until you atone for your mistakes, So if that's the attitude with which sports is being treated, you can see how it trickles down. I think the other challenge is that if you look at federations are not governed by the government. Federations report to like their international affiliate bodies. So Football Kenya Federation here, it's FIFA, right? If it's Kenya Basketball Federation, it's FIBA. So even if there's a lot of wrongdoing in those federations, government can't say, oh, we are coming to clamp down on you because you've done X, Y, Z. So even the way they are governed leaves a lot of room. They're essentially self-governing bodies, and they're political bodies, because the way the chairperson is elected, it's an election, and so that leaves a lot of room for people to just do what they want. So those are some of the more systemic challenges that you see in the industry. I think that for women, and not just women, but honestly, it's a social issue as well. There's also a big access question. So if you think about, even when you were growing up, if you grew up in Kenya, how accessible was like a field, a track, a football field, a basketball court, a hockey field? How accessible was it to you and your neighbors, right? And so if you look at this country and you think about who can actually access sports facilities, for me, it was very easy to transition into a career in rugby because in school, we had a basketball court. We used to run track. On Fridays, we'd be taken to Impala for swimming. So me and my friends, both male and female, were very used to sports. So it was very easy, even after primary school, high school, to keep being physically active. But if you're growing up and you're in a space where, if you're a girl in your school, maybe there was no football team, um, there was no rugby team, or it was like the field was mostly for the boys to play, then you're already starting like, oh, I'm not sure, like I don't, you know. A lot of girls also pick up certain sports in high school, some later on. And so I think because there's also just a big infrastructure problem, kids are not getting the kinds of access that would allow them to just get used to, like, I can use my body in this way, which is really important for girls. When you're at a very young age, to get comfortable moving your body in certain ways, to get comfortable appreciating your body for what it can do, as opposed to like what you're told it should look like. And you see that, I think there's been studies done. I think mostly in the West. I don't know about Kenya, but a lot of female CEOs, there's a high correlation with them being athletes when they were in their younger years. There's a confidence that it builds in those women where you feel like I can walk in a room and I can do things, you know? And so I think it's an important question we need to be discussing. And when I talk about infrastructure, I don't mean huge stadiums and arenas. I mean every neighborhood having access to like an athletic track, a football field, a swimming pool, so that kids can just get used to it. The community as well, because then it's sort of just becomes like a social thing. The same way you go watch a movie or go to the mall, you just know, okay, my kids are going to go here after school, and then they'll come back. My girls will be in a place where they can play and be safe. It's a big thing for young girls to feel like they can go and be safe, and for their parents to feel the same thing. So I think the infrastructure it's a big piece that I think limits access from a very, very young age. Yeah.
I want to pick up one thing which you mentioned. So, you know, when you're speaking, it seems like obviously there's like hard physical infrastructure that's there. I think that's just something about the social infrastructure, the social norms and attitudes, which seems like have been very supportive, at least when you were growing up. The fact that, you know, sports was just a thing that you do in your house.
In my family.
Right, in your family.
In my school.
Yeah, and in your school, right? And so that kind of made it okay that, you know, as it doesn't matter if you're like a boy child or a girl child, you just move your body the way, you know, you should move your body, right? Sort of thing. How is it like, you know, you grew up in that environment and then, you know, you've spoken about it, you know, then you come out and you're in everyday world, but there are obviously certain stereotypes of what female bodies should be like, could be doing, what is the definition of, you know, femininity versus masculinity. Has there been sort of like any dichotomy once you're out of that sports world and like how people perceive a female sports person? You know, like is there a clash between, you know, like, oh, you know, like this is not feminine enough, right? Like that.
So I think for me, I would say the struggle was probably when I was coming of age. So like in my teens, actually when I started playing rugby, so call it 19, going on 20. That was freshman year of college. That was my first time lifting weights. And then I could see the muscle building. And I was like, what the hell is happening? You know? And I remember feeling like I don't feel feminine enough. Like I feel like I want to be good at my sport. And so I need to do these things. It's also about protecting yourself. Like if you don't lift weights and you play rugby, you're in danger. Yeah. And I was like, I want to be good at my sport, but I also feel like my sport is making me unattractive. And it took years and years and years of work for me to actually come to a place where I was like, no, actually, I'm comfortable with the way I look. And I think a lot of that is just how we're socialized as women. You're socialized from a very early age to have a certain aesthetic, to have your body look a certain way so that you can appeal to men. And so then when you find yourself in sports, all of a sudden it's like you'll have to undo the social conditioning. So yeah, that was a big challenge for me. I think for the most part, you know, post school, post undergrad, post my playing career, I mean, I found that like it's received very well, right? When you tell people, oh, you used to play rugby, you were on the national team, it's like, oh, that's holy shit, that's like a good thing, right? It's like an impressive thing. And so I think people recognize the level of effort that it goes into being like a good athlete, and people respect the grit. I think when I was in college and would be doing interviews for jobs, like employers, we had many employers saying that like they want hire athletes, right? Because they know athletes like will find a way to get it done. They'll put their head down. They know how to work in teams. They're disciplined. They'll find a way to ensure the job gets done, right? And so I think that once you leave, you see those kinds of things. But I think we don't spend enough sort of advocating for kids in the system. I also think that in Kenya, one of the challenges with our national thinking and psyche is that we think people can only do one thing at a time. And so if you're good at school, it's like you focus on studies. It's like, oh, I can do well in my tests and I can still be a good athlete, or I can still be a good poet or actor, right? And so I think we are a country of you're one thing and one thing only. And that's also my biggest gripe with this CBC system of pathways, where it's like at 11, you want to tell a child, you're a sports person. At 11, I was still deciding whether, I wasn't even thinking about choosing. I was just like, today I'll play basketball, tomorrow I'll run, Friday there's swimming. So, and then I still like reading these books. I like science. I don't like JC so much, And I think we are limiting our children by trying to put them in these boxes, right? You have doctors who are really good footballers. JJ Masiga, right, as an example. So I think we need to broaden our thinking as a nation to create opportunities for people. Because if kids feel like, I can only be one thing, they're not going to explore. And you might as well explore your talents as far as they can take you. And then maybe when you're 20, be like, actually, this thing is not for me. As opposed to when you're 11, 12, being told, no, you're a maths kid. Just forget about sports,
Yeah.
That kid could be an excellent mathematician and an excellent footballer. Yeah.
And imagine it's not just about, what you become, but just those periods of trying out different things. It is like your synapses, right? Like different neural muscles just working.
And I think also one of the things about sports is less than 1% of people that play sports in school become professional athletes. So it's really not about even the professional pathway. Yeah. It's about what sports does for you, especially like as young girls, your confidence, getting comfortable in your body. There's value in doing things just because they have it builds teamwork, it builds social skills, it keeps you out of trouble because you're busy after school. And then also something that I think we just never think about is like, let kids do it just because they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like they might not be good at it.
Yeah.
It might take them nowhere.
Yeah.
But just let people enjoy nice things, right? Just let kids play sports because they enjoy it. Like that alone is enough.
Yeah. It reminds me of the importance of play, which has become such a subject for early childhood development. Anyway, I digress. So quick follow-up on the point around stereotypes. So Madhuri had asked around what the perception of a female should be, and maybe when you're playing rugby, for instance, as you were saying, maybe there's that dichotomy of whether when you're strong, whether you look feminine enough. Do you think there's been enough sort of stories right now being told that can change that perceptions, or are we still... I assume, my hypothesis is that it's changing, but do you think enough is being done? Have you seen anyone who is at least trying to be that role model to show something different? And I ask this because one of the things we hope to do with this podcast is to give very concrete examples of things that people can look at out there. So have you seen any leaders who are trying to change this perception?
So are you asking about role models when it comes to the body image issue specifically or broadly?
That, and also just broadly, but also specifically the body image issues, or what quote unquote winning or success looks like.
For me, I think all women who are playing sports actively are role models in that sense.
Yeah.
And I think we have this obsession as a country with this idea called mentorship. Oh, come and be my mentor. Come and take me under your wings. The fact that there's just women existing and playing sports as adults, for me, is enough. Right? Because then the girls in your community can be like, this is a thing that women can do. And
are they getting enough visibility?
And they don't need to be on Instagram saying, I'm mentoring 100 girls in Kibera to be athletes.
Yeah.
No, the fact that like you exist in that community and you're doing you and doing life and being an athlete is enough.
Are they getting enough visibility or?
No, I wouldn't say they are.
Okay.
I think it's because we don't invest enough in marketing women's sports and getting people to come to the games, getting people to watch the games. It's also a factor of the federations and the clubs that are running these teams. I think need to do a better job of marketing. I think football in Kenya does the best job in terms of like women's sports. So I think the female footballers, I see them getting a lot of love on social media and that's because those teams are investing in marketing, and not all sports are doing it the same way, but there are some who are making an intentional effort.
Okay. All right. Then let's pull back to what you're doing right now, being sort of a sports executive or a female in this, I would say, male-dominated field at the top. How are you applying your experience to make these things shift? What's your priority? What are you hoping to change? Some of those systemic barriers are extremely difficult, the ones we talked about. So what's a priority for you, and how are you seeing it evolve at the executive level, and what are you hoping to see?
Maybe piggybacking on that, like, the the study that you spoke about, right? Which is top executives usually have very high correlation to being maybe an athlete or have done sports at some point in time. Do you actually now see that playing out in your own real life?
Yeah. I'm an example. Yeah. So, I think with Twende Sports, we are a sports enterprise that focuses on basketball. We own a team called Nairobi City Thunder. That's a men's team, right? Right now, we had two teams playing in what is called the Nairobi Street League. So those are amateur teams, a men's team and a women's team. The women's league got cancelled, right? So now we don't have a team
Why?
playing in that league. A lot of issues around like scheduling, coordination, sort of commitment and whatnot. And so when that picks back up, then we'll have our amateur women's team participating again. So I think for me, the way I stay involved in terms of like women in the sports space is, just plugging into communities of women who are doing important work in the space. So for example, a lady called Cynthia Mumbo, she runs a company called Sports Connect Africa, and they set up a program called She Leads Sports. Basically, they take in a number of young women who are aspiring to have careers in the sports space, who have already begun careers in the sports space, but are quite young and just getting started. And I think they did a 6-month program just walking them through. And then so they invited a bunch of us who are already working or have been in this space for some time to just come and share our journeys and whatnot. So there's stuff like that that's going on, which is really exciting to see. And kudos to Cynthia and Amakobi for what they're building, because I think those kinds of spaces are so essential. So yeah, it's been good to see that. The other thing that we hope to do at Twende Sports is actually build our own basketball arena. So going back to the infrastructure piece, right? And so once you have that, it actually becomes a lot easier to also do programming for women's sports, because you have a place where you can gather these girls. It's safe for them. You can actually dedicate a court space, because right now where we play, we don't own any of those venues. We train at Nyayo Stadium. It's a public venue. Tuesdays we train at NIS. That's a school, right? And so we actually don't have control on access and whatnot. But when you own your own venue and facility, you can actually support equitable access to the space. So that's something we hope to do in the near future.
How can the ecosystem enable the work you're doing? What can make you move faster?
Government incentives on land. I think, concessions on land for people who are trying to build sports infrastructure. I think from a federation perspective, just being fair, honestly. Our federation is really, like, it's not run well at all. So teams don't get a revenue share of the ticketing revenues, even though we're the ones that bring the fans, those kinds of things. We don't have a media rights deal as the basketball league, and so then that reduces the ability to market the team to sponsors. And I think all these things, when they compound, they make it difficult for teams to reinvest back into the team, to build up the athletes, to start like kids programs, because you're just like, it's a staff. So I think those kinds of things, I think, would really help go a long way. And then I think also from a government perspective, community infrastructure, right? Because, for example, if you take it as basketball, if there's a lot more courts and a lot more kids that have access to courts, all of a sudden they're getting into the game a lot earlier. So they're building the talent a lot sooner. It makes it a lot easier for the teams to have quality players, right? Because you're not having to teach somebody basics. Like they've come through the system. So I think we need to have a lot more investment in community infrastructure. There's some in schools, but there needs to be a lot more investment in just like living communities and having people be able to access infrastructure.
I'm going to pick up one thing which you said when you started off, Sandra, which is, when you talked about how little athletes were earning when you were playing, and you said, this is really not what business should look like. What should business look like now that you're running one?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Athletes should be the most important part of any sports ecosystem, and if you look at how the athletes are treated, I think it'll give you a sign of how seriously that ecosystem takes sports. And so I think what it should look like from the athlete's perspective is they're getting compensated well. They have good health insurance, so they're not worried. If I break a leg, I'm going to be out because my federation or my team is not going to pay for me to get medical care. So that's on on the athlete's perspective. I think on teams and federations, ideal is that these organizations have been able to, build the fan bases. So then they have eyeballs that they can then monetize, either through sponsorships, as they do marketing, as they are talking to media houses to try and get media deals to put their games on television and reach a wider audience. That's ideally what it should look like. Yeah.
So then maybe knowing that, like, what's sort of your hope and dream, both for yourself, for Twende Sports, and just sort of the Kenyan, like sports ecosystem broadly in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, where do you want it to be? Or where do you think it'll be?
Yeah, I think for me, I would just say access. Yeah. That's the biggest thing, because Kenyan athletes have somehow found a way to make it work in a very broken system. But I think that the more that we make it easy for communities to access sporting facilities, the more that we double down on marketing and investing in our local teams and athletes. One, because if people are becoming just in a day-to-day basis, they're actually more plugged into the sports space. They're running, they're playing in a local football team, they're taking their kids to a basketball camp on the weekend, then they're sort of incentivized to actually seek out sports entertainment, right? And then that helps the ecosystem grow. So for me, I think democratizing access at a very basic level, it's going to sort of filter up and allow the system to grow. And so that access happens through infrastructure. It happens through the school system. So there's honestly a lot on government's end, but then I think there's also a space for private sector players like Twende Sports. We're doing what we can, but we as like one company can't change the whole country. And so it's really a big public play to stop treating the sports docket as like this fringe thing that we sort of every 4 years wait for the Olympics to cheer.
Yeah. Now, last question as we wrap up. If there's a girl who listens to this, assume somewhere, I don't know if we have listeners in Mandera or Kisumu or Nairobi, but if they're listening to this and they hopefully want to become either a rugby player or maybe a sports executive like yourself, what message would you want them to take away?
I think I would say, 2, you're enough, and then just start. There'll never be a perfect time. And the time that you spent doubting yourself, you could spend it improving yourself. And so a lot of the people that will tell you, no, you can't do it, have not done it themselves. If they had, they wouldn't be telling you can't. So don't listen to those people. They don't have no idea what they're talking about because they have not done it. So you just keep going. Regardless of how difficult the journey may seem, I think, just start. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sandra, for that. And we're very glad that you started. And
as am I.
Now that you're here, I'm super excited to see where this goes next.
Thank you. This was lovely.
Yeah, thank you so much.